my instructor used to say, everything you do in life is kung fu. Everything. You get up in the morning, you make your bed is kung fu because it's discipline. You wash your clothes, you wash the car, you go to school, you do your homework. It's all kung fu because it's all getting and practicing towards that state of perfection, that state of being, and that purpose.
Beginning his training in 1995, Sifu Jacob Arenstein has trained in various disciplines, including his principal art of Kung Fu, as well as Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, Hapkido, Judo, and more. He is the successor of Spring Martial Arts in Spring, Texas, where he currently teaches and practices. Sensei Ramsey Veitch, an in-depth practitioner and instructor of Aikido, Kempo, Japanese Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, Iai, and Kenjutsu, samurai sword arts, has been training in the martial arts for over 2 decades. He has also found supplemental training in varied arts, including Krav Maga, Muay Thai, Kali, boxing, Taekwondo, and Wing Chun over this time. He has a passion for teaching and enjoys learning anything and everything related to the martial arts. He is the owner and head instructor of Impulse Martial Arts in Easton, Pennsylvania.
Guys, welcome back to the show. Sifu Arenstein, Sensei Ramsey Veitch. So great to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
How are you guys doing?
Doing fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to talk, this time of the year, a lot of people are coming in with New Year's resolutions. They, are realizing they need to get back in shape. They want to commit to their martial arts more, whatever those reasons may be. And usually it's, they come in for a couple of months and then it peters out. Not usually, but that sometimes happens. And I think as veteran martial artists, you guys probably have some wisdom on how to stick with your goals. I mean, you guys have been doing this for decades. You've shown that you have that dedication to stick with your goals. And so, where does it begin? Where does that commitment start, and how does it continue for all of those years? Sir,
I could definitely lead off on that one. Like you said, you see it all the time. People want to come in and then it peters out over a couple of months. I've had people come in, they're like, oh, I haven't done this in so long, so many years, so many this, so much that. Oh, I'm out of shape. I don't know if I could do it. The first thing I tell everybody, it's an icebreaker and it seems to work. It's very light in the mood. I said, round is a shape. You're always going to be in shape. So there's no worries on that. And so the hardest part is the discipline aspect of it. I think if you're coming by yourself is one thing, because you have to have self-discipline and there is no motivation to do it. It's all discipline. The motivation is to, I'm going to go check this out. I'm motivated to go see what it is. But once you get started, that discipline is where it comes in to constantly come back. If you're going in by yourself, find somebody at the school or wherever you're training that you get along with good, and you can have this partnership, this accountability that, hey, I'm going to be there on Tuesday, or I'm going to show up on Wednesday. Are you going to be there? And get that accountability to help that discipline stay in check. If you're going in as a family, it works even better, because then it's yourself or your wife or you and your kid, or the whole family is doing it together. And that way there's really no separation of the spouses or the kids from the adults, and they have that quality time doing something that's not dealing necessarily with electronics and sitting in front of a TV the whole time.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what you said, Jacob. I see the motivation also being temporary. I don't necessarily believe in motivation being something that is long lasting. So I actually wrote about something similar to this very, very recently, and that's why I was interested in so much in talking about it, because I just wrote about this a few weeks ago on my blog, and I talk about purpose and purpose in training. So some of what I went on about was purposeful training, okay, training with purpose, but also when it comes to the motivational and encouragement factor, discipline factor, we have to consider purpose to be the main factor as to why somebody trains. And I think that transcends deeply into how long you're going to stick around. So when people are signing up for the gym, as we love to use every year as an example, because it's it's evident, we can track the numbers and say, oh look, thousands of people signed up for the gym, and then two months later, you know, they might still be signed up, but they stopped going. You know, and gyms probably bank on this, but again, that's you know, again, that's temporary motivation. They say, you know what, new year, new start, new me, fresh, and they just want to use January 1st as their restart button. And I understand that. I've used it, and it works to an extent. But ultimately, if you don't have a purpose in training, if you don't have a purpose to go to the gym or to go do martial arts, if you don't have an underlying purpose, then you're likely going to fail, quit, become unmotivated, disencouraged, whatever it is, and you're not gonna find that discipline to get up and go doing what you're doing. Sometimes results will happen, right? You'll start seeing the pounds shed off. You'll start seeing results with your technique. You'll start seeing changes, and that might continue to motivate you here and there. But ultimately, I think if you have that purpose going for you, you won't need any of that, circumstantial substance to keep you going. Me, for example, I've never really had a noticeable purpose when I started martial arts. I didn't say, I'm going to go to martial arts and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I want to get good at self-defense. I want to do this. I want to do that. I didn't have any of those like specific martial arts things that when I started 20 years ago. My only encouragement or self-motivation or purpose was because I wanted to be like Steven Seagal. That was literally the only thing, right? We could all relate. That was literally the only thing that got me to sign up on my own and to keep going. But I didn't wake up every day saying, hey, you know what, I can't wait to be like Steven Seagal. I just thought it was so cool. And then that's what kept me going. So I started going, and I just never stopped. And then obviously my motivations and my discipline and my purpose has changed over the years, but nevertheless, it's just a life. I know it's a lifelong goal and a lifelong journey, and it's just something I just keep doing, and I find purpose in. And now one of my purposes is to teach and to pass on as much as I can to other people, so they can get the value and benefits out of martial arts as I did. Consequentially, from just going to martial arts, studying a little bit, I've learned so much, as you guys have too. And we can really say, to anybody, go to martial arts, do this. You're really gonna it's gonna benefit you, and you're gonna love that you did it later. And don't stop now. We can say all that stuff, but if it's not up to them, if they don't find purpose in it, then it's really just in the air. 6 months later, you can say bye. We've all seen thousands of people come and go in our time doing martial arts, and I think purpose is behind it. They don't have a purpose for doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very well said. So, you mentioned the fitness gym model of motivation, which is, abysmal. They sign up like more people than they can actually fit into their gym, knowing that those people are never going to come and actually work out. I will just say one thing, because I want to give us all a pat on the back. Like, our retention rates are much, much higher than that. And we do much better at getting people hooked on what we do. I mean, most people who sign up for martial arts train for about 9 months, or most people that go to gym do it for like a month, so anyway.
I think there's a big reason for that. I think there's a huge reason for that, is because of what we do. And Ramsey, to your point for purpose, is we're able to give that consistent one-on-one training. Even if you have a group of 10 or 20 kids or 10 or 20 adults, you're the instructor leading everybody, and you can give that individual attention and or group attention on a consistent basis. And I think with that, it's like doing a personal training in a gym. If you get a personal trainer in a gym, you're paying for a service, you're getting that service. Yeah, it's a business model, it works, but you're more inclined to continue going because you have that setup, you have that trainer that's there working with you all the time. And I think that's where our roles fall in as an instructor, because we are there all the time. We're there before it opens, we're there after it closes. Yes, we run the books. Yes, we do all the testing. We do all of the stuff behind the scenes, but we're also on the floor performing and teaching alongside of folks that aren't at our skill level or are above our skill level. And, you know, Ramsey, you said you have a purpose. As mine has changed over the years as well. As my ultimate goal, the reason I continue going is, well, when I started, I was bullied as a kid and I didn't like getting bullied, and I got into martial arts and it helped me, you know, get better self-esteem and confidence and such. But now my goal is to train and help people grow in better character, better personality, and give them motivation to succeed. And anything that we do in the martial arts, punch, kick, whatever, that discipline, that constant practice, you can apply it to everyday life. You know, my instructor used to say, everything you do in life is kung fu. Everything. You get up in the morning, you make your bed, is kung fu, because it's discipline. You wash your clothes, you wash the car, you go to school, you do your homework. It's all kung fu, because it's all getting and practicing towards that state of perfection, that state of being, and that purpose of constantly moving. So it doesn't require motivation anymore. Now it is that discipline and that building in there. And again, going back to what I said, we as instructors, we have that invisible title, if you will, of personal trainer because we're there constantly all the time with these folks. And I think that's why we have a better retention than most gyms.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Couldn't agree more. And I think there's other reasons too. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I also think, you know, you go to the gym, you're doing the same thing every day. A lot of times you're doing it by yourself. And, you know, if you get a good group together, that can really help. But martial arts is great because every day you step on the mat, you're not only being physically stimulating, you're being mentally stimulated. And that never ends. I mean, I've been training martial arts for 32 years, and I feel like there's still so much to explore, so much to learn. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. You know, when we talk about retention from an industry side as like instructors, what's like the number one thing we do to increase retention? Build community, right? Like, okay, well, how we got to do a community event, we got to do something to bring people together, right? And that's the one thing that I would really encourage new students to do, and they very often forego it because they're too nervous and they're like, well, you know, I just want to get in there and try it out a little bit, is make friends, talk to people, get involved in the community. Because when you go to, everyone's going to have a time where they start kind of shirking on their training because they, you know, they've been training hard, but then like, you know, I'm just going to take this weekend off. The weekend turns into the next week, the next month, and then pretty soon they never come back. Mm-hmm. But if they're training not only to improve their fitness and to become better martial artists, but to see their best friend on the floor, they're going to come back to see that person. And so anyway, I think that's very important as well.
Sir.
Right. Go ahead, Jesse, you can go.
Thank you, sir. If I can hop in here. So coming in to the conversation, you know, about goal setting and motivation, it sounds like where, and I can relate to this as well. Like I feel like I am continuing to develop that purpose, but I do have a sense of purpose when I step onto the mats, when I come into the dojo. For the new student, for the students on the floor every day that are fluctuating, coming in and out, you know, what are some of the ways that we as instructors can offer that hand and you know, promote and motivate them on the floor? Because we all have that student that comes in and they're just like, you know, maybe they've been here for a few years and they're tapped out that day or whatever it is. They're not as focused as they usually are. And, you know, without coming down with the iron hammer, how do we continue to poke and prod that person to remind them of what it is they're doing here and, you know, the things that they enjoy? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so to touch on a couple of things, As far as building community, I think, well, first off, one thing I think all four of us have in common, all right, me, you guys, and then Jacob, is I think collectively our purpose overall is to learn martial arts in general and as a whole. If you notice, every single one of us on this stream right now, we all do multiple martial arts. You know, not one, not two. We do like 3 or 4, you know, or more, right? And we most likely dabbled in a dozen others, right? So I think, you know, our purpose is just to learn as much as we can. And what's cool is and what I like to remind people is, I don't care if you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you're a black belt and you're really, really good at ground grappling. I don't care if you're a 5th Dan Iaido practitioner and you know how to use that sword like chopsticks. I don't care what level you are. What's important is that you just keep on learning, right? And that's what all these people have in common, is they just want to keep on learning, and they don't usually just limit themselves to any one specific area. Those and the people who don't limit themselves to a specific area tend to want to keep going, because there's always something to learn, no matter what level you are in any one martial art. There's always something to learn. That's why I love to visit people like you guys, who have a plethora of techniques from different martial arts styles and whatnot. And I love to stimulate myself with things that are the same old or even new. And that just makes it all the worthwhile. And it just makes it very exciting too, because you never know what you're going to learn. And I was having this conversation with the owner of a BJJ school that I do privates out of. And he said, yeah, I don't even do seminars anymore. I don't go to seminars anymore. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why? Because I have my own opinion about seminars as well, pros and cons about it. But he said, well, I find out I just don't learn anything, you know. And I didn't want to get into a deep discussion with him, but I did want to just tell him, as without getting deep, you know, you should attend seminars from now and again, just because even if you walk away with just one little piece of information, it might be worth it, you know. Again, it's depending on how much it costs versus, you know, who's doing it and, you know, whatever. And if you're paying attention when somebody else is teaching, no matter who it is, even if it's your own student teaching class for the day and you're watching them, you're going to learn something. You know, you might pick up something that you didn't realize you even did or said. You know, I'll see my students every once in a while do things that I like to do, but they'll do it just a little differently. I'm like, you know what? I like that, you know, and it's because everybody's got their own thing about them. So you can always learn something from everybody. And so the point is, it's a never-ending goal. Essentially, there's so much to learn. As long as you have an interest in learning anything martial arts, it's unlimited. It's absolutely unlimited, and that's what I think keeps us all going and doing this for, you know, we've all been doing martial arts for over 20 years. You know, so what else we're not worried about self-defense training anymore, you know, although we can always get better at it. That's not motivating us to go to martial arts anymore, you know. So we want to learn new things, new exciting things. So I want to pass that on to my students and say, look, you know, what are your goals? What are your intentions? What are you trying to do here? And then I want to, you know, put them in the community. I want them to enjoy coming to class, not because of the physical and mental training, but also to be with friends and family, to be safe and to feel welcome and have a place to go and hang out and converse and socialize, so that they can just become better people and just have a great time. So retention wise, hopefully that they'll be brought on board, and everybody will be nice to them, and, you know, we'll bash each other too, you know, we'll have fun with it. And people tend to stick around a little longer than because the idea of martial arts and going to the gym and working out, it's fun, it's great, you know, but fun and greatness is all temporary. You know, the idea of a six-pack is temporary. The work it takes to get a six-pack or to get good at martial arts is tremendous, and that gets people to go, oh crap, I don't know if I'm meant for this, and then they give up, you know. But if they feel welcome in the community, then they get a fighting chance, and then they'll get better, and then they'll be like, oh, so glad I stuck around because everybody was so nice to me. Now I'm better. Now I want to stick around for that reason as opposed to the community more. So, yeah.
Agreed on that. I do cookouts and barbecues twice a year for the school, and what we do is we'll set up. We've been hosting it for the last couple of years at the school itself. We used to go to like the local parks and dog parks and such like that, and we would invite the community out, come meet and greet the instructors, see the students. You know, for example, you're talking about retention and getting new students in. Is like, I'll sell an ice cube to an Eskimo. I want you to go talk to my students. I want you to go talk to the parents. I want you to ask them why they continue to come back. What do they see in the value of what I'm doing and what my instructors and taught me, or what the folks that I'm teaching that are now passing on the information. What is the value they see and the reason they keep coming back? What's the motivation there? What's the reasoning behind it? So that's what I like to do as far as community stuff. Seminars, I teach seminars. I like attending seminars. It's fantastic.
He's coming here, guys, to teach a seminar to you on February 4th. So don't miss out. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, awesome. we got a month. First Saturday of February. It's gonna be fantastic, and yeah, we're gonna cover a lot of material, and so it'll be fun. It'll be fantastic. But anytime, and you were talking about Ramsey, you were talking about humbling yourself, basically. If I'm going to a new school, I don't care if I'm a black belt in 10 different arts. I'm going to put that white belt on and I'm going to do class like everybody else, because
Amen.
I can't humble myself like that. How am I going to A, get better myself, and B, pass on what I know to other people? If I want to pass on my knowledge to somebody else, I don't want it to be a conceited point of view. I want it to be an open-minded point of view. I encourage people to cross-train all the time. I hold sparring classes twice a month on Friday nights for people to come out. I've invited several schools to do our stand-up sparring and to do our open mat grappling. And I'll be holding a class coming up February of the 11th, I believe. Yeah, that second weekend on the essentials of full contact fighting. And so I've invited folks to come out from my school, and there's a few other people I'll be reaching out to here shortly as well to say, hey, look, I'm teaching this class. It's only 2 hours, but come out, you know, just come train, come enjoy. You have this art, and maybe they are a polar opposite. So you still learn something. Learn how to punch, kick, take people down, and some people are going to be better at certain things than others.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to be advertising your seminar to the greater community, not just for our students as well. So all of our seminars are like that. And I think it's nice. You were talking about a friend of yours in BJJ who was saying, you know, I don't really need to go to seminars anymore because I already know everything. And that smacks to me of arrogance. If you think you know everything, you're not going to learn something. You're not looking deep enough. You're not looking deep enough, because I can watch the exact same technique taught by a different instructor and I can learn something new, or I can relearn something that I've forgotten because this is going to sound arrogant, but I know so much that I can't keep it all in my head. So I'm like, oh yeah, I learned that like 20 years ago, but I haven't done it in 20 years. Like I like a little refresher course. Okay. And I never would say like, oh yeah, I know it all. And I'll also say one other thing in the BJJ community, and I say this because I consider myself part of that community. Seminars are a big thing, and so they do a lot of seminars, and they do a lot of schools will do a lot of promotions at the seminars to encourage people to go to them, and it's kind of this whole thing that they've sort of built up. I could kind of see like that instructor, maybe he's saying like, oh, you know, I've just been to so many of those seminars as the same instructors teaching, and they teach kind of the same thing. Maybe that's where he's coming from, so I don't want to cast any shade on him, but I'll say one other thing. Go outside of BJJ. BJJ is not the only martial art out there, guys. It's not the only martial art that has a lot of wisdom to teach us. And so maybe that's part of the problem, is that you're just looking one style to have all of your answers, and it doesn't have it.
Yeah, just to correct, and just in case I was misheard, I just want to say that it wasn't about necessarily him saying that he knew everything. Just to throw that in there. It was just because
I'm just talking about hypothetical.
I know. People are like that. Absolutely, 100% people are like that. He's actually a very humble black belt, and he's like, I don't even feel like I'm a black belt, but I'm an average black belt. I'm nothing great, you know what I mean? And so he's very humble about it. But that was, yeah, I think the conversation was that he's been to enough seminars, and it's just kind of the same old stuff, you know, like how many ways can you show an armbar? How many ways can you show a new, a Kimura grip, you know? So it's just a lot of more of the same for sure. But either way, yeah. So as a whole, going to the seminar is like, oh, well, kind of a waste. But if you are looking for, yeah, hence the reason I'm probably not going to, an Aikido seminar. And not that I'm the best at Aikido, but because a lot of it's more of the same. Oh, look, another Kudagaishi, another armbar, another this, another that. And I'm looking for very small, specific things. And I just don't want to pay $300 to look for that one small, specific thing. Usually if I do a seminar, I will attend it because it's completely out of my range, like Kung Fu. I've never taken a Kung Fu class in my life. I would love and gladly come to a Kung Fu seminar, you know what I mean? Or go to a Kung Fu school and learn some Kung Fu, 100%. And I would pay, some money for that. But I wouldn't pay the same amount for an art that I'm, really familiar with. So,
I think that's a sentiment, and that's, but I mean, there's definitely value even for me to go to a Taekwondo seminar. I mean, I've been doing Taekwondo my whole life, and I feel like I've done like a million roundhouse kicks, and I pretty much know all the theory that the Kukiwan puts out, but I still would get a lot out of it. And but I would get more out of, like a Kung Fu seminar, because I don't know as much about Kung Fu, and
right.
It's fine to have that opinion. I think what probably that was a sentiment that your friend was articulating, and I think that's fair. But what I wanted to articulate is that then you need to start thinking outside the box. Like you were saying, all of us have trained in lots of different martial arts. That's because we are never satiated. We want to keep finding new things to explore and discover and make our martial arts better. And that's what makes great martial artists. And that's actually what keeps us going. That's why we do it for 30 years, because we can't get enough of it. And we're looking at different places to find the answers. If we're always just looking at the same instructor and the same thing, yeah, we're eventually going to run out of source material.
Yeah, absolutely.
True. And to your point on that, even if you think you've ran out of sourcing material and you still go to those seminars, quit going to the seminars for yourself. Go to the seminars to meet new people. Go to the seminars to branch out, to cross-train, to meet someone that you've never thought you would establish a relationship with, business or friend, business or personal. Now, I've been to seminars for Wing Chun. I've been to seminars for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for Kung Fu. Some of the stuff I've known for years, and I know who the instructor is teaching, but I get to meet somebody there that's never done it before, that I get to work with, regardless of their skill level. And then, hey, let's get some coffee after, or let's go, get some lunch, or hey, come over to my school. Let's continue working out and training a little bit, and see where we can go from there, and just build a friendship at least.
Right. Yeah.
So closed-minded about things, or you go to a seminar and it's all about me. I mean, agreed. If you're just starting off something, you're white belt, blue belt. I mean, even if you're brown belt or first degree black belt or whatever, you go to a seminar, you're like, oh, this is great. I'm learning this, and this. But after a while, it's like, quit worrying about yourself. Go for other people.
Right. Yeah. And going along the lines of the community we're talking about, the community extends outside your own dojo, right? So yeah, going to the seminar. I went to one of the biggest Aikido seminars a few years ago now, out in California, and with the doshu, and there's 1,000 people in that gym arena or whatever it was, and I wasn't expecting at all to learn anything new from this guy, but and to be honest with you, I didn't learn anything from him, but I did learn from the people I worked with. Whether it be technical or from whatever, and we're all there to help each other. We're there to guide each other, because you have a big room just full of 1,000 people all training, doing stuff. It's even hard to even get a front line view, and then you have to, wait for the translator, and then you have to attempt to work. And then when you're working with other people in different styles, and you're getting their viewpoints and you're getting their guidance as well. And then you can reciprocate that. Yeah, and you're building the community, and that. So if you can't go to a seminar and do something like that for community purposes, it might be more difficult to uphold community in your own dojo. And I think that's actually, without getting too into it, my old instructor he was all about community in the dojo, but wouldn't put his foot forward when it came to establishing community. He just expected us to do it, and to put forth all the effort, to do that. And he never expanded outside of his own dojo. We're always just kept right in, kind of like that old school Japanese master way. You can only talk to me. You can only do this. It's like, okay, whatever. So eventually, it didn't last long. A lot of people, especially even black belts, were just leaving over and over and over again, just regularly. He was just losing a lot of upper level students and lower level. So he had a lot of turnover, and it was unfortunate because he just stopped doing the community aspect of it and just focused more on the business side of it. So I think it's important, if you want to keep the students, make them feel welcome, because they are welcome.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the money that we're bringing in and all that stuff. We need to make friends with our students and let them know that we're here for them, and to train with them, keep up the integrity, and they're not just another way to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. And it just goes so much further if you have a family environment for the school than a more so like a brash, sport, let's just get in there and fight type environment. You're going to get the wrong people that we're going to walk through your door one day, and you don't want that. I keep a family environment at the school, and it is definitely a fine line that you walk, especially with students, because you want to have a family friendly atmosphere, yet we're teaching an art form that is extremely violent at times. And so being able to get that differentiation and that respect for what you're learning is hard, without mollycoddling the person the entire time, because then they're not going to learn anything at all. And that is such a super fine line to walk, and it's hard to do. Not everybody can do it.
Yeah. So we've covered a number of key points, I think here. I'm hearing, coaching is what makes martial arts so successful in helping people achieve their goals. Community is also an area that we are very strong in. Intellectual stimulation, by continuing to explore the myriad paths of the martial arts, whether that's your starting discipline or other disciplines that you encounter as you kind of go up through the ranks and explore the martial arts. What are some other ways that we can set goals for ourselves and achieve those goals? I'll give just one to kind of get us started, what you guys think. And that is, my master, we had a leadership team back when I was in Wisconsin working for him. And he would always tell us, when you set a goal, you got to write it down. You got to put it somewhere you can see it every day. You got to tell a friend about it. If you can, get somebody else to do the goal with you, because they're going to keep you accountable. They'll be like, hey, I showed up at the dojo today. Where were you? These are just some examples that come to mind. What are some examples? Those are some lessons, I should say. What are some lessons like that you guys have learned over the years?
Okay, I'll start with that. So going back on my idea of purpose, having the individual goals, such as curriculum, for example, right? You open up the curriculum and you're like, oh, look, I have, techniques X, Y, and Z that I need to learn for my next belt or stripe or whatever your ranking system is. And those by themselves could be exciting or what have you for the student. It's a good way to select milestones and to keep track, and the idea of visually seeing, okay, I have this, I have this, I have this. All I need is this. Great. When you get that mentality, at first you're like, oh crap, there's a whole bunch here, but every day I say, hey, look, you're getting these techniques, check them off. And then before you know it, you will have been at least exposed to all of the, these dozens of techniques or whatever the curriculum is. You've been exposed to all this stuff. So write down, like for example, E for exposed, like, or shown or taught. And then, make another column that says, I performed this, I'm getting better at it, it still needs work, and then another one, I'm pretty good at this one, stuff like that. And then just a way to keep track of what you can do. And then just seeing that list dwindle down to, oh my God, I only need a couple left. I think just internally, you're just going to have that little bit of extra self-motivation and discipline to go, just finish it off. You're 90% there. Just get it done already. Just do it. And that works for some people. It's not going to work for everybody. I, for one, personally never looked at my rank and said, oh, all I need is this one and I can test, because getting the next belt never really mattered to me. It was always, I just want more information and then the rest will come. So, but not everybody thinks that way. Some people will look at it and say, oh, I can't wait to get, my next belt. Okay, great. Okay, what are you going to do to get there? Okay, and here's some ideas. So I'll help my students with, how to train. That's helped me. How to train that other people have been successful with. And again, seeing that curriculum list dwindle down will help, encourage them to keep moving forward, because it might not be as daunting as it might originally seem, especially if you have a deep, in-depth curriculum. Mm-hmm. So with the purpose, again, if you have the purpose of the goal in mind, let's say you wanted to lose weight, right? What I think people should ask themselves is why? Why do you want to lose weight? And if you can answer that question, and that question means something on an emotional level, I think that will be all the cause for self-motivation that you need. I think something in your mind will click as a result of it. This is why, like, motivational speakers, they'll talk and they'll be like, oh yeah, look at me, this worked, this, that. You shouldn't do this, you should do this. I recommend this, I recommend that. That doesn't help anybody. But something that they say eventually will make sense, and then the person will just, that light bulb will go off and they'll go, what? Wait a minute. And then internally they got this desire, this purpose that they didn't know was there because they didn't know why, but now it clicks. And then all of a sudden, whatever obstacles were in the way, maybe they didn't have any money, they'll get a second job. Maybe they didn't have the time, they'll find the time, all of a sudden, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. They'll find a way to get that just to accomplish their goal now. And they won't even think about it. They'll just do it. Nothing will get in their way. Look at these millionaires, right? These people that are millionaires that worked for their money, they set a goal, and their goal is, I don't want to be broke, and I want to make this much, and I want to do this. I don't want to be paycheck to paycheck, or whatever their goal is. Something clicks, and boom, they're just going, right? And the people who hesitate are the people who don't have that mentality. So it's a mental shift. It's a mental shift, and it's not good. It's not bad. It's just, I think you can't force somebody to believe in God, right? And that's a mental thing. You just have to. You have to experience for yourself, just like with the goal setting. So with the goal setting, we find a goal, find why. And once you have that why, if it connects with you on an emotional level, it'll be a very easy goal to obtain. It might take some time depending on what the goal is, but you're not going to sit around going, oh, I don't want to do that. How many, some people work for a living. Go to their job. They wake up every morning. Oh, I gotta go to my job, right? And they dread it, but they still do it. Why do they still do it? Because they need money. What's the purpose of money? So they can live and eat and pay for their bills. That's an underlying purpose. That's why you go up and go to the job. If you don't go to the job, you don't get paid. You lose all that. So that's an underlying purpose that we don't even think about. It's just natural. It's just instinctive to go and trade your time for money, and then get your house in order as a result of it. So in martial arts, we have underlying purposes, us four, but some people need that actual purpose and that goal with purpose behind it, and then once they figure that out, should be pretty straightforward, I think.
I think I agree with you 100% on that. And to your point, positive and negative reinforcement are both benefits to goal setting. To your first example of going through the rank test requirements, your education list, whatever you need to do, what we do is, as an example, is we'll have a pre-test. Like I'll bring the students out and say, hey, look, you're getting ready for this rank. I need you to come to this test here so we can go through everything, so I can highlight exactly what you need to work on. That's one way we do it. Another way is, like I had a question come up from one of my students, like, man, this is a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know if I could remember all this. So I go, okay, let me show you something. And I took out their requirements, which was like a green belt or something like that. I took out the requirements that were before from their orange, and then their next one, which is blue. And I said, okay, so this is where you were at orange. I said, if we check off only the things that are added, if you look here, you have 5 things that are different. 5 things outside of what you already know how to do. And then to go forward beyond that, you only have 2 or 3 things extra to go beyond where you're at. So, and breaking it down like that, and then the visual aid definitely helps. You're like, oh, it's not a whole lot. I didn't realize I knew so much material. And then the other aspect, the negative reinforcement, as I use it with kids all the time, because they're like, oh, I don't want to come here, mommy. I don't want to do this, daddy. You know, they sit there and they get whiny and just don't want to put their hands up or do what they want to do. I'll put them with other folks their age and such, and they all work together in a group, but they get to become friends with each other. And then all of a sudden that friend starts progressing and this person gets left behind. Like, how come I can't get that belt? How come you won't give? Because you're not doing what they're doing. You're not putting in the effort. You're not listening to our instruction of what you need to do to help become better. You know, you're staying here with a bad attitude. I said, you could be a 20-year white belt. I don't care. If you have a bad attitude, I'm not going to rank you up. It's very simple. You know, you could have be the best martial artist and fighter in the whole wide world. I don't care. If your attitude is crud, I want nothing to do with you unless you change that attitude. And so it's that negative reinforcement comes in. They're like, oh, well, maybe I should start doing what I'm supposed to do, and I can catch up and learn new things. And then they come around and it's not boring. It's something new. It's something different. And then they strike their own motivation, their own goal setting. Like, hey, I want to do something different. I want to be better now. I want to pass this person up. When I started, one of my best friends, he was already a black belt when I started. He was a junior black belt. He had been doing it since he was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. And he was like, he was 12 when I started. And so I started when I was 9, and then I surpassed him. It took decades, but I surpassed him, and only because life happens. You know, he had to stop or whatever. But my goal was I want to be like this person. And I've had several people when I was growing up that I looked at a student who was getting ready for their black belt, or they were a black belt, and they were just awesome. It was like, I want to be like that guy, and I want to do what that guy does. And then I started working my own goals, and I get to teach that to the students now, because then they're like, oh, I want to do what you do. I'm like, great, let me show you how to do it. We start from right here and we work our way up. They're like, how come I can't do it? I said, because you just started it. I said, I understand you're a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist. I like perfectionists.
Right.
But we get so caught up in our head that if we can't do it the first time, that we just can't do it. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. You know, you have to take a step back and let go of that ego and just go one step at a time to your ability. One thing I tell the students, I said, look, I do not expect you to do something exactly like me. I do not expect you to perform at the ability that I perform. I expect you to perform at the best you are able to do at this point. And then if you did the absolute best you can at this point, it was perfect for you. Now go back the next day and make it better, and make it better, and make it better, and make it a constant cycle.
That's what we do every day, right?
That's exactly what we do. And to your second topic about work. You know, people get up and they dread going into the office, or they dread doing what they're doing, and they're not happy. You know, wherever the motivation is, whatever the reason is, you know, I don't care if it's $100,000 job a year. If you're not happy with it, you're not going to be happy with it. But if you can find that niche that you really enjoy and you can isolate it, even in the job industry, like what I do, I work in supply chain. I've been a recruiter for engineering, IT, medical. I now work on the other side of the coin doing the program management, working directly with the hiring managers and getting jobs focused in the oil and gas industry. I absolutely enjoy what I do. I didn't always enjoy the aspect when I first started doing supply chain and recruitment because of how volatile the industry is. And then once I got my experience, my years in, and I was able to transition to this next part that I'm at now, I love it. And I'm like, I worked hard, begrudgingly going through the trenches because I had a goal in mind. And I reached that goal. And now that I'm here, I'm able to learn what I can and start drudging through the trenches again to go to that next goal. And that is something a lot of people don't do. If you start working at McDonald's, start working at Burger King, start working at a retail store, go to Target, start somewhere and then work your way. Don't get stuck, always constantly strive for better.
Right. I've always said that I'd rather make minimum wage doing something I love than making $100 grand at a job that I hate, so
exactly.
I think a lot of people would agree with that once they get the taste of the real world and you get to a job that you don't like, now if you get to a job that
hate the
pays,
manager.
if you get to a job that pays crap and it's a crappy job, well, now you're just going to hate work in general, but once you get a good paying job and you don't like going to work for whatever reason, that's telling you something. It's not about how much you're making, right? It's about how are you enjoying your life. You spend so much of your time at work. A lot of us do. We'll spend a lot of time. So why not go somewhere that's fun? And we can't all do that. We can't all be entrepreneurs. We can't all own our own businesses. We can't all own dojos. But for those of us that can, we know that it's so rewarding just from a even though it's sometimes more stressful than just waking up and going to a job that's already managed and just flipping a burger or moving boxes around in a warehouse, right? Everything's managed for you. All you got to do is the grunt labor. That's not stressful. That's not stressful at all. It's like zero stress in my book,
Yeah,
definitely. You're going, running a dojo like we do, that there's a lot of stress involved. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that our students have the luxury of not having to worry about, and they shouldn't have to worry about a single thing. My wife's the same way. Like I love my wife to death, but she doesn't have to worry about a thing. I handle everything, and I make sure that she can handle this. And she's aware of everything, but she can handle it. If something happens to me, but it's like she doesn't have to worry about the house not being paid for. I make sure that I communicate anytime I can't do something or something comes up. So it's about life fulfillment and being happy. Again, it goes back into that community aspect we're talking about, having fun. And if you have purpose, my purpose of running a dojo is to pass off the information, and that's why I go to the dojo and I teach multiple days a week. And I don't make tens of thousands of dollars. I don't have that many students, but that doesn't bother me one bit. I love going. I love teaching everybody that's in my dojo. I love having them in there and seeing the progression. It's just so much, and not to mention I'm learning. As instructors, we learn every second that we teach. We're learning something. We're teaching ourselves. We're learning by watching the students. So we're not. It's not like our training stopped just because we're teachers now. Just because I'm not with my instructor or instructors multiple days a week like they are with me, it doesn't mean that I'm not learning. Just by teaching. So yeah.
I think it comes to we used to be with our instructors multiple days a week, and now it's our turn to pass on the torch. And my purpose is to make every student better as a martial artist and as a person than I am and than I ever will be. So if I can help you become better than me, I did my job. I did what my personal goal is. And I think that's a fantastic viewpoint for it, because it took me a long time to realize, running the school and just teaching overall, especially when I took over the business, exactly how much time I have in my day. If I didn't have the school, if we didn't have these conversations, if I didn't constantly strive to train and become better in martial arts, I would have so much time back in my day after
I know.
8-hour shift. It's insane
I
on
know.
the amount of time I would have. And I thought about it, and I've been thinking about it consistently for quite a few years now. And I'm like, how much more boring would my life be if I
What
had
would you
an
do?
additional
What would you
8 to
do?
12 hours of doing
Yeah.
nothing? Like, what would I do?
What would, yeah,
Would I go to the
what do
gym?
people do?
Would I fall in that rut? Would I go, oh, I'm going to have some motivation to do this, and after a week, oh, I don't like it anymore. What
Yeah,
would I
yeah.
do with that extra time?
I would love for people to comment and just be like, I don't do martial arts, and this is what I do with my day, like, do they go out and drink or movies or what like, I don't know.
People sit
Like,
at home. There's folks that I've known for years
Netflix and chill.
that not even that. They just be a couch
Yeah,
potato.
I
They'll sit at
guess.
home
Yeah.
and then they'll sit at home after work and they'll have a beer, or they'll just sit down, watch some TV, and maybe read a book or play on the internet, and that's it. That's all they do. They go to work, they go home. There's no social activity. The social life is on the weekend for whatever reason, family, friends, barbecue, whatever. But that's it. Like,
Living
you
for
have
the
an
weekend.
additional like 8 to 12 hours. What do? I train.
There you go. There's your motivation. If you're sitting on the couch and you're not doing anything, think what you could be doing right now. You could be in the gym.
Motivation, not be bored. I've got plenty of stuff that I can work with somebody on so they're not bored. And if they think it's boring, I'll show you how it's applied. And then they'll be like, oh, light bulb. Oh, why does my arm hurt? Because you do the push-up. That's why.
Yeah, I love showing. Sometimes I get a little over my own head, and I kind of go, I wonder if what I'm teaching right now is boring, because sometimes you see the looks on people's faces, and being on the teaching side of it, like being on the student side of it, I never thought anything was boring. I thought it was just, okay, what am I going to learn next? Or what can I gain from whatever this instructor's teaching? So that's how I've always viewed it. But when you see the faces on some people and they're like, they look either perplexed or bored or whatever, I don't know what the emotions are, what they're thinking. So sometimes when I think that what I'm teaching or I'm ranting on or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay, it's boring. Okay, you know what? Let me show you how this is practicalized, because everything has a practical purpose in some aspect. If it doesn't, personally, I don't think we should be teaching it if it doesn't translate into something practical, right? Why are we lifting our foot off the ground? Well, let me show you an instance, right? And then it's usually like, oh, well, we were doing it really soft this way, or we were doing this rotation this way. Okay, now let's do it in a little more real time. And then it just impacts a little harder, and people have that idea when they watch a YouTube or TikTok or Instagram video, they'll be like, well, what the hell is that? That doesn't work. Like, what? Like, he's not just going to stand there. He's not just going to fall. You're learning the specifics. You're learning the dynamics of the move,
mechanical,
and technique, and all this, and then okay, well, here's the scenario where it could be practical. Boom. Everything is all very situational. There's no technique that's going to work on all these specific instances. So, yeah.
Run away.
Yeah. Run away.
Run away. No, it's true. And breaking down the dynamics of a class like that is super important. If I teach the class every single day for a week straight, the same thing over and over and over, they're going to get bored. Guaranteed. I don't care if it's a rank test coming up, they're going to get bored over and over and over. Yeah, you have a day that you drill just specifics, or you do everything in one day, but then you got to change it up. You got to have something fun. If you don't have that stimulus, then people shut out. They close their mind. They go to sleep mentally, and then they're done. They'll sit there and do the routine, but there's no effort, there's no emphasis, it's just like a shell moving around. So, yeah, it's fun.
It reminds me, there's like kind of two stimuli that keep people moving forward. I mean, there's a lot more, but that are kind of relevant to what you're talking about right now. And one is, entertaining the students. That keeps them excited and keeps them coming. So switching up activities and doing the same activity from different iterations, different ways. And then the other is getting good. when you're good at something, like when you're good at throwing a roundhouse kick, you love throwing a roundhouse kick. When you suck at throwing a roundhouse kick, you don't like it that much because you're like, oh, it's like hacky sack. Have you ever played hacky sack? The
Oh
first
yeah.
year of hacky
No, because I suck at it.
you're missing it every single time and you're so frustrated. It's like the hardest thing to do. And then when you get good at it, you're like, oh, this game is great. Boom, 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 boom. So the same thing is true for young martial artists. And it's like the challenge is, and if we can tie this back into goal setting, the challenge is like, guys, we want you to stick with your commitment to become a great martial artist. But we have these two things that we're juggling. One, I'm trying to entertain you, keep you excited, give you new ideas and new thoughts. But if I give you too many ideas and I try to entertain you too much, you won't get good. And if you're not good, you won't enjoy that experience at the same level. You won't self-identify as a martial artist in the same way. And that's what really takes like a hobby to a lifelong pursuit, is when you start self-identifying as a martial artist. Say, this is who I am. This is what I do with myself. And you have to be somewhat proficient in order to attain that.
Right, like I real quick, I like just from what you said, Master Olds, was getting good to do, to have fun. And for me now, just personally, I'm kind of like almost the opposite. Like I want to, I could do certain things like really good. You know what I mean? Like I'm rather proficient in certain things, and those things aren't really fun for me to do anymore. What I think is personally fun for me is the stuff that I'm not good at, the stuff that I'm constantly learning, because I just love to learn. And if I know something good, like really well, and I'm just like, okay, this is kind of boring now. Although I'll still practice it, but I'd rather work on things that I'm not good at, that I need work on, because that's just my mind constantly shifting from this and analyzing and doing this and doing that. All that stuff is just really fun to me. It's like a puzzle, trying to get your body to coordinate properly so you can land, this thing. I was doing a kids class yesterday. I was just teaching them a basic body pivot. In Aikido, we call it tenkan. They step in, they step back, and they face 180 degrees. And my one child was having trouble with it. But after like 30 repetitions, he got it, and then boom, it clicked. And he just kept doing it back and forth, back and forth. But he wasn't that happy while he was messing it up the whole time. But once he got good at it, he had a smile on his face. He's like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, so I'm, give for anybody who's watching that's new, give it just a little bit of time, get as good as you can, and focus on something, so that when it becomes easier, when you start doing things properly, you're gonna have a boatload of fun. And eventually you'll hope, maybe you'll have the mentality like me, maybe you won't, but you'll do it so well, you'll just be like, yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
If I can speak to that, this is something that, being where I am in my martial arts training right now, that is so true. That sense of, okay, there's so much to learn, so much to work on, and maybe I'll throw, for example, a roundhouse kick. This is a running joke at the dojo now, but maybe I throw my roundhouse kick 1,000 times, and like,
it's great. It's the best roundhouse kick you've ever seen.
One of those times,
Never mind, I'm sure.
I can feel like, oh, that was the good one, right? And then I throw 1,000 more times, and maybe 2 of those times, it's like, okay, like I'm starting to feel that out, and that sense of, oh, I see how this can come together here.
Yeah,
is such a compelling force when it comes to training. And what I wanted to say here is that a lot of people, I find, get frustrated and they give up, or they step away from the bag before they get to that one time out of the 1,000 that feels like, oh, this is what I'm doing. And
it's hard, because it's hard.
I think that is the power of the instructor, right? Having the person there, or the coach or the mentor, having the person there to be with you and say, okay, it's getting close, there it is, boom, that was it. And then, whenever I am working with a student and I go, okay, it's looking a little better, that's it. They always, without fail, just beam. They're like yes, yes. I'm like, okay, now
Mhm.
try to do that again, again, again. And just building on that sense of momentum and sense of ownership, of identification. Oh, I am now a
Mhm.
person that did that correctly one time. Or so uh,
One thing that helps with that, Jesse, and I teach this a lot is, well, you're saying mimic the technique, do it again, the exact same way you did. But I think it goes beyond that, and it's more so remember the feeling. Not so much was your foot turned a certain way, did you have your hands up in a certain position? Yeah, that's all well and good, the mechanics of it, but to remember how it felt when you actually did the technique. For example, you throw your thousandth roundhouse kick, and the best one in the whole school, and you rock that bag, and it just goes, and you do it so well that you don't feel the kick. You just know it happened. Remember how that feels, and try to replicate that feeling again, versus trying to replicate the mechanics again.
yes, sir.
Mhm.
Because I speak from experience on this. I've had knee surgery, ACL and MCL, just obliterated from judo. And I had to rehab. I had to recoup. It took me almost 18 months before I was only at 98%, and I'll never be 100% again. If I break the knee a second time, it's going to be like 75% usage. I had to adapt. How do I throw my kicks? How do I stand? How can I rotate my body for a proper punch without tweaking my knee? How do I not get my knee hurt doing BJJ?
Mhm.
How do I need to coordinate my body? And finding those ways and remembering the feeling is what helps me. And so I was able to teach that to the students as well. Like, look, I adapted from an injury that's a career-ending injury.
Mhm.
People break their knee, or they can't walk anymore. They get the surgery and they never rehab it like they're supposed to, and they can't do anything. It's amazing. You think you pull your back, try tweaking your knee and see if you can move. It doesn't work too well. So remembering the feeling, how something felt, I think is vastly more important than just the mechanics, because you can now associate something physical within yourself, mental within yourself, and that endorphins just they fire off, and you're like, this feels great.
Yeah.
And then you make sure the mechanics match up.
So,
Even though we always train both sides of our body, we tend to have one side that's better than the other. And that's a really good thing to do. When one side is better than the other, you say, okay, the way I'm turning over my hip on this side is like, ooh, it feels so good. But when I do it this side, there's something missing. And you use the one side that feels really good to mentor up the other side that doesn't feel quite right.
If you have one good technique and you can do Jesse's roundhouse kick great on the right side 10 times, and his left side is not so good, do it 20.
sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
there
sir.
you go. Take your worst
Double it on the bad side.
right?
Yeah. So injuries, talking about things that do the opposite of what we're trying to do, which is motivate and encourage people to stick around so they benefit from the martial arts. Things that kind of push them away, besides lack of community, is like injuries, like we're talking about. That it's very concerning to a lot of people if they get even the minorest of injury, the most minor of injuries, because of their certain job. Maybe they're at a job where they use their hands, and their hand or their wrist got overturned, or their elbow got tweaked or something like that, right? Or their knee, and the lower back and the knees and the neck, like those are choice areas that people will be discouraged quickly the earlier that they're training. So if you're training for 4 or 5 years and then you tweak your knee, right, you'll be like, okay, I'm just going to take it easy, like you're talking about, Jacob. And but with a newer person, they'll tweak their knee and they won't come back at all, because they'll think that they won't be able to recover, or they don't want it to happen again. It's going to affect work performance or exercise performance or goal performance, whatever they're looking for. Maybe it's going to mess with their running career. I don't know, whatever they're trying to do, and lower back pain, neck pain, stuff like that. Personally, I've dealt with injuries. My first month in martial arts, I had my elbow hyperextended from an arm bar. It was just just tweaked a little bit. It wasn't, there was nothing wrong with it. It just got over, hyperextended. But I kept coming back, no big deal. You know, I've had my wrist sprained for 2 years. I think it took like 2 years for it to heal properly. You know, I've had a neck herniation, half a dozen years ago, stuff like that. So I've had my share of issues. I've had bilateral knee surgeries to get, torn meniscus taken care of. And, but that never kept me from doing martial arts. I was just looking for a way to train despite those injuries without worsening them. So for anybody who has an injury, if it's not keeping you from coming to the mat, from like if your ankle's busted, obviously I don't expect you to be on the mat, doing all these things, but there's no reason why maybe you can't make it in a dojo and watch class. Maybe you can't just stay at home and just use that time to study up on the curriculum. Maybe just review some stuff online or whatever materials or resources you have. There's always a way to train if you want to train. If you want to do something, you can do it. And if you have an injury, though, just make sure it doesn't get worse. Protect it. Be safe above all, and just don't let it discourage you from continuing to train, because you're going to get injured. This is a physical activity. We're very physical. Just like if we're going to play football or hockey or basketball, anything like that, you could accidentally come down on your ankle. You could fall into your wrist. You could hit your head on somebody else's head. Anything can happen in any field. So if you don't want to get hurt, stay inside your house.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a belittling way to anybody who might complain about a small injury. But realistically, if you leave your house, or even if you're inside your house, you're probably going to get hurt in some fashion, whether it be relatively minor or major. But that's why we really focus on safety in martial arts classes. I'm sure most martial arts do. But yeah, just stay safe and take note that injuries are temporary. Don't let it discourage you from achieving your goals and some milestones.
And I think for goal setting, that's perfect, because understanding that aspect of any sport that we do, whether it's martial arts, basketball, football, rugby, golf, whatever, it's not a matter of if you get injured. It's a matter of when you get injured, because it's going to happen. We've been doing this so long. We're human. We make mistakes. We have errors. Sometimes we just wake up and things hurt. We don't know what happened.
Hashtag 40.
37. So yeah, I'm getting there too, man. But no, it's just a matter of when, not if. And the more we can train, the more we can be safe about things. Aikido, for example, or us with Kung Fu, and Master Rolls with your BJJ and everything, are break falls. People come in all the time with a broken wrist and cast because they fall to try to catch themselves, learning how to take a fall, learning how to hit the ground safely, learning how to fall from heights, learning how to fall. My story, I tell all the students, I was like, look, my break falls typically come from slips, trips, and falls that are not fighting. They asked me how. I said, I'm fixing a hole in the roof of my garage, and I'm on a ladder with tools, and I fall off the ladder and hit the ground, and I don't break anything, and I don't stab myself on screwdrivers and such. So it's break falls. It's safety. Yeah, I got hurt, but I didn't break anything. It's not a matter of if you get injured, it's a matter of when you get injured and how you protect yourself with it.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned that. I've been doing martial arts for 20 years, and I haven't been hurt that much, considering. And I would say I get hurt more just walking around every day, bumping my head on things because I'm 6'3", or snagging something, like a lanyard around my neck gets caught on something, like just random stupid stuff. You'll jam your finger. I hit my toe on the wall the other day just walking to the kitchen, and I'm just like, son of a gun, and I just couldn't. You can't shake that stuff sometimes, but all these injuries that I've experienced around the house, I've never experienced in the tens of thousands of techniques and throws that have been done to me or I've done. It's just interesting. I've fallen and been in a position of injury way more often doing martial arts, but I get injured more outside of martial arts. So people, it's physical, and people think, oh, I don't want to get injured. Okay, but practice safely. Do what we're telling you to do. Things as we're instructing you, as prescribed, and you won't. Chances of you getting injured are going to be drastically reduced. So So don't be afraid of getting injured, because like you said, you're going to get hurt eventually. You're going to do something wrong. Somebody's going to do something to you by accident, most likely. And then, but you just got to fight through and just realize, oh, this is just temporary. You know, if it's long lasting, I really hope that doesn't happen to anybody where it's long lasting. I thought my herniated disc in my neck, which wasn't really martial arts related, I think was well, I thought it was going to be permanent. I thought I was going to have this issue the whole time. But I still went back to training. I just trained a different way. And but I was really hoping that, and it's fine now, but I was really hoping that it would go back to normal, so that I could train as hard as I've used to train before. And now I can, but I didn't have those hopes. Yeah, I didn't have that expectation back then. I just was playing the cards I was dealt, and that was it.
I can't train like I was 20 anymore. You know, I don't try to train like I was 20 anymore, and I can, you know, go work out 18 hours and then wake up the next day, go to work or whatever. I can't physically do it anymore, but it doesn't mean I can't push myself and still, you know, train other people to do that very same thing. So
Right.
not that we slow down, it's the fact that we get stronger.
Mhm.
I think it comes down to, I was told that yesterday as like a friend of mine, I was demonstrating a form for, we're recording it on video. And he said, you know, when you were like 18, 19, I couldn't keep up. Nobody could see what you were doing. Now we can see what you're doing. It's not because your technique changed. It's not because you got slower, but you're just doing it stronger. I'm like, point taken.
Yeah.
You know, the number one way people die is accidental injury.
Really?
Yeah, it's like getting a protractor stabbed through the eye because they fell on it or something ridiculous.
Oh wow.
Well, you know
That's
what the little
funny.
toe was invented for, right? The little toe on humans, that's invented
Oh,
to find
to get
furniture in
broken.
the middle of the night.
Yeah. That's how you know where the furniture is. That's what's important.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just that toe.
But on that note that we've been circling, and we're probably gonna have to bring this to a close at some point because we're getting to that hour and a half mark. But all great advice for, you know, beginning martial artists, even veteran martial artists, and how to stick with their goals and be committed. But oh wait, what were we talking about? Accidental injury? You were, oh, lost it. I've lost it.
Oh no.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Talking about how little toes find furniture.
Yeah.
I was trying to get way back into that conversation that we were talking about earlier with Mr. Veitch, but I can't remember.
Like with the purpose or the goal setting or curriculum. Not sure.
There's a lot of topic of conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of stuff we touched on. Play it back, Jesse. Play it back.
All right. We have covered a lot today. I mean, I think my big takeaway from this conversation is that motivation and goal setting permeate every aspect of what we do.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I'm sorry, guys. Sometimes
sir.
it happens. Brain fart. But, you know, whenever I get hurt so many times, yeah, I've gotten hurt accidents. You know, first time I broke my arm, I was playing on a jungle gym and I fell down and I broke my arm, and it had nothing to do with martial arts, even though I've been training in martial arts my whole life. But I have definitely, you know, gotten a lot of things broken and cracked all, you know, through my years of training. But through it all, I just keep training. You know, like maybe I have to take like a few weeks off to rest and recover and things like that. But I'll train with a broken arm and a sling, and I'll just work on my footwork. You know, I'll work on my one arm that still functions. And I like to teach my students that, you know, we train like you're training like as you're part of this team, right? If you were on like a wrestling team, you wouldn't get to go take 6 months off and come back and still be on the team. You would come in and you would stretch out, and we would work on what you can work on, but we would keep you moving forward so you stay in relative shape. And unless there's something horrible, like, you know, you spinal injury or something like that, I think you can kind of train through it and work around it. And it's always a fine line, whether it's an excuse or it's legitimate. And I can't ever figure that out. And I don't think anyone really can. It's way too easy to make it into an excuse. So just try to do what you can do to stay in the fight so you don't check out and then it becomes, you know, something of the past.
And only do it to the best of your ability. Don't try to mimic somebody else. If you start mimicking somebody else, you risk injury.
Actually, let me just touch on that real quick. I agree with what you're saying, Jacob, overall. But I do want to say that I think it's also important to at times try to emulate the person who is doing it good. All right, and not in an uncontrolled way, but I mean, just personally, this worked for me. I feel, and I always try to look and do things the way I like, as if I was trying to be Steven Seagal. Okay, as if I was in one of his films. I tried to do things, and emulate him the best I could, so I can do it exactly the way he did it. And I feel like that actually helped me personally. But you're right, though, that does open up a risk for injury. All right, but at the same time, it does provide you with this mental confidence that allows you to just go through the technique. And even though it might not feel good, since when does any martial arts technique feel good the first time you do it? Right? It's always clumsy. It's always it's always messy. You have no idea where to put your hands, how to move your hands up or how to move your hands over, where to put your fingers and all that stuff. But if you're trying to pretend like you're doing exactly like your instructor's doing, I feel like that could help. Could help. You just have to make sure you keep it done in a safe way. Don't speed it up. Don't do anything crazy. Try not to be as fast.
And that's where I was going with it. It wasn't so much don't do what I'm showing you how to do, but sure, do it at your ability, do it at your power level, your speed, your precision. Yes, get the angles correct, get this, that, the other's correct, but that's really where I was going with it. And I appreciate you clarifying on that, because you said it better, more eloquently than I was able to.
I appreciate
it. Nothing is yes and no. Everything is shader bars, and you guys are both correct. I mean, I think maybe what Mr. Arenstein is trying to say is, don't just be all up here in your head. Get down in your body and feel what it feels like to actually do the technique. And that is exactly what you're saying, which is, watch the master instructor and see how he's moving, and try to move like that. But don't just think up here. Think in your body. But that's going to really help you improve your technique.
Right. Agreed.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Have fun. Come in, enjoy yourself, have fun. The better you can have fun, I think the easier the transition through your training, through your development will be.
That's right. Right. Find your reason and your purpose for training, because that goes a long way. I mean, find your purpose for doing anything. And if you have a purpose that affects you from a mental or emotional standpoint, you're going to find a way to accomplish it. No problem. You're gonna supersede all your obstacles, and it won't be difficult. It'll seem easy as you're doing it, if you have that divine purpose beneath it.
Guys, if people live in your areas and they want to get to connect with you, get to know you better, how can they reach out?
You can reach out to me at springmartialarts@gmail.com. Our website, www.springmartialarts.com, has a plethora of information on it. We are on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, a lot of different social media platforms. And just shoot me an email. I had, example, I had a gentleman email me yesterday. He and his son trained with us about 2 years ago. They did a couple introduction classes with us, and personally, I don't remember them, but they said, hey, we did a couple introduction with you 2 years ago. We wanted to come and check you guys out again and see if we can have some conversation. I said, yeah, definitely. So I've already got a meeting set up with them, and we've got it going. So I think it'll be fantastic. But yeah, social media, I think one of our biggest things, and what I wanted to say earlier is, a lot of martial artists, we used to not want anyone to know anything we were doing outside of the school. But nowadays, with everything on camera and everything on video, I would rather showcase everything that I know as correctly as I can and help develop more people. That's what it comes down to. If we want a community, that's the way we got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed. I can be contacted all the same ways. ImpulseMartialArts.com, and
Your blog,
know,
you had a blog.
yeah, I got a blog on there, and lots of all the information you need about the martial arts that I've studied and dabbled in, and where I train and all that stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure having you on. Hopefully have you on sometime in the future again and talk about another great topic. Until then, best of luck with your schools. Have a great New Year's, and wishing you the best of luck with everything this coming year.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed that podcast, please consider liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel, as well as hitting the notification bell. We offer in-person, group, and private lessons at our facility in Kyle, Texas, as well as virtual lessons anywhere in the world. If you'd like to learn more about our programs, you can find us online at risingphoenixtkd.com.